Nothing says primitive skills quite like a hand drill friction fire. But this is something that is shrouded in mystery for a lot of people, and so that's what we're going to go over today. Down here in Northwest Florida, it's been very humid. It actually rained yesterday, so these are not the easiest conditions for any friction fire, let alone a hand drill. So we're going to take a walk through the woods to collect some materials for our friction fire. Now what we're going to use for our spindle and our hearth board is yucca. Yucca is a fantastic friction fire material. Now yucca is really a complete fire kit in and of itself. You've got the hearth board, the spindle, and if you want to do a bow drill, you can make a really strong cordage out of the leaves. But for this video, we're just going to stick with the hand drill. So when starting a friction fire, especially with a hand drill, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. And number one is the moisture content in the materials that you're working with. So if it's been raining or if it's been damp or humid, it's going to be much more difficult to get a friction fire going, although definitely not impossible. So we just had a big rain yesterday, but the sun came out in the afternoon and dried things out a little bit, and it's been relatively clear overnight. So there's a lot of different species of birch, and most of them will work great for fire starters. There's a lot of volatile compounds in the bark. Now down here in the southeast, what we have is river birch, and it's very different than the paper birch from up north, but it still works very good. If you want to try this yourself, don't fret over trying to find the exact stuff that I'm going to be using today. There's stuff that'll work all over the country. Things like poplar, willow, cottonwood, mullein stalks work great, elderberry is one of the best. And so no matter where you are, you should have access to something that's going to work well. I'm not going to go into detail about all of the different species that'll work for these friction fires because there's a bunch of them. But if you just do a quick Google search on friction fire, you'll come up with a whole list of different species. You can find something in your area that's going to work well. So anytime you're collecting kindling like this, these really fine branches here are what you're going to want. You're going to want to collect a big handful of those and keep all of the different sizes of fuels together. Now when I'm collecting this, I'm looking for the stuff that snaps super easy when I bend it. If it bends like this and doesn't snap, I can bend that almost all the way over before it breaks. I'm just going to leave that, and I'm going to look for some stuff that is more snappy. See, this is pretty bendy here. I don't want that. The reason I don't want that is because there's too much moisture in it. That's what causes it to be able to bend like that without snapping. So this is much better. That's just when I bend that, that's snapping right off. That's good. One of the big problems I see people running into with any type of friction fire, whether it be hand drill, bow drill, fire saw, whatever, is going too hard, too fast, too quickly. When I start this hand drill, I'm starting nice and slow, just kind of warming it up a little bit and using that heat to drive off any residual moisture that might be in either my hearthboard or the spindle. Now ideally you just wait until the afternoon when the sun and wind has really dried these things out. If you don't have that luxury, you can still do this in the morning. It just takes a little bit more effort. So I've got my little divot burned in there. Now I'm gonna carve my notch out, not quite to the center. You don't want to go all the way to the center of this, because if you do, your spindle will just kind of walk out towards the notch. So you want to stop, well, maybe 2/3 of the way into the little divot that you've created. Unless you're doing these hand drills all the time and build up the right type of calluses in the right locations on your hands, you're gonna probably get a blister the first time or two you try this until you build that callus up. So to start with, I'm not trying to build a fire. I'm just trying to create dust and fill my notch up with dust. If I put too much pressure and too much speed to start with, I'll end up with black dust, which is already burnt, and it won't make a coal and expand that coal. And so what I'm looking for is a dark brown dust to fill that notch. Looks like my notch is filled up with dust. I'm getting a little bit of smoke, and so now is when I'm going to start applying more pressure and more speed. This dust that you're creating is the fuel that's going to carry and feed your coal. Ideally, you're looking for a very fine, dark brown dust. If your dust is black, that means your fuel is already burned up. You're going too hard, too fast, and you're just filling your notch with burnt fuel. That's not going to work. Not quite. The other thing that these hand drills require is a lot of stamina, because usually the way it happens is right when it starts to smoke really heavily, you kind of just like give out, and you got to push through that last little bit to put on the pressure and put on the speed to get that coal. If it doesn't work the first time, just take a break, start over, and try again.
That's got it. Yep.
So once you get a coal, you can kind of relax a little bit. There's no rush. It's just going to sit there and grow. You give it a little bit of air and it's going to expand through that pile of dust and create a larger coal. So now I'll go ahead and just transfer this right into my tinder bundle. Once you transfer it into your tinder bundle, you need to kind of wrap that bundle around the coal, but don't squeeze it so hard that you put it out. Just keep the tinder close to the coal and blow until that coal expands and ignites that tinder. Once that coal starts to expand a little bit, you can increase the air and really speed that process up.
Well, that's poor timing. Bar now.
All right, so now you know everything that I know about starting friction fires. So go out in the woods, cut some material, and start twirling sticks and see if you can't make a fire. Odds are you're probably not going to get it on your first shot, and that's just fine. That just leaves room for improvement. You just got to kind of stick with it and make some mistakes, but eventually you'll build up that stamina, you'll build up that muscle memory, and once you figure it out, once you get your first one or two, it's really not that hard. So get out there and give it a try, and we'll see you on the next one.